Your sensors are correct. Do not adjust your heading. You've discovered the Omega Particle, streaming to the Alpha Quadrant and beyond. Here's your host, the anchorman of the Federation, the Doctor of Dilithium. This is Jonathan Wiegand.
No, Luna, I mean, come on. I mean, it was just a theory about Kirk, and we know it's just an Easter egg. It was just a theory. Right, are we recording? Did you? Anyway, welcome to the Omega Particle Podcast. I am your host, your Doctor of Dilithium, Jonathan Wiegand, and that was my intern, Luna, who might be replaced. I'm just kidding. We were talking about last week's kind of wild theory of a potential Kirk revival, right next to the Genesis device. But, if you haven't heard that theory, go back to last week's episode of Picard review of The Bounty and listen to that. But today we're reviewing the 7th episode of Season 3 called Dominion. And boy, this one had some mixed feelings, just to be honest. That's my honest opinion. We'll get into it, of course, during our review, but I just want to say I wasn't so gung-ho about this episode compared to the last couple weeks. But I will say, just to check in with the fans, the media, you beautiful people out there, we had a Twitter and Instagram voting, kind of like what you thought about The Bounty, and about 80% of you voted a 5 stars, awesome episode. Some of you voted for about 4 and 3 stars, but a very low percentage, around 9 and 10% for those. So it's really kind of across the board and across the consensus of the Star Trek fandom that, The Bounty was an excellent episode. But I think the Dominion will be vastly different. Just from what I've been reading and what I've been hearing and talking to you guys on social media, it's just not as well loved. And you know what? That's okay. Remember a few weeks ago, I was kind of mentioning, there's these roller coaster episodes where you have this huge, amazing climax and hill, and, you're going down the hill and you're screaming and your hands are in the air and you're like, wow, this is great. And then, now you're kind of in that crescendo, we're just kind of coming out of it, kind of setting the table for the rest of the season. And, that's fine because this episode really did an amazing job of that. But it did raise some doubts in me. How are they going to land this plane? And I've been saying that all season. They're setting us up with these great episodes. But if they don't land the ending, it would just tarnish the legacy of Picard. And if you doubt beyond that, and you don't think the ending's important, you remember a little show called Game of Thrones, anybody? Yeah, that ending completely botched the entire series. Remember, people were so pumped on it. It was such a pulp culture icon for so many years. And then nobody even rewatches it anymore. It's very rare you hear people be like, oh, I'm starting Game of Thrones. Because the ending, we all know, is crap. So hopefully they land the plane right for Picard Season 3. To me, I think this definitely sets up Episode 8 with the kind of classic trope of Trek, having Worf and Raffi return to the Titan, and then they slowly kind of Die Hard their way. And if you haven't seen Die Hard, they slowly take over the ship one by one. And then episodes 9 and 10 will be about stopping, the attack on Frontier Day. So the table is completely set, or it could be completely wrong. I don't know. The writers definitely haven't been following the formula, which is also good. So I'm not going to complain about that. However, just some quick news. I'm sure a lot of you saw Michelle Yeoh won Best Actress in the Oscars for Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. Is that right, Luna? Okay. Ever since then, a lot of people in the Star Trek community have been kind of worried. This newly minted Oscar winner, is she going to do the Section 31 show that we've kind of been waiting for? And so we'll have to see, but I don't know. He says that they're very excited. They're still in the long gestating Section 31 spinoff, and it's still going to happen, according to Alex Kurtzman in an interview this past couple weeks. So hopefully that's what we get. And if not, I understand, she's probably getting paid a lot more to do other things, but I hope we get a Section 31 because this definitely ties into today's episode. in Section 31. I mean, are we the baddies? I think we have to ask ourselves that after watching this episode. Anyway, without further ado, Luna, let's roll. Like I was saying, after the excellent episode last week of The Bounty, it was kind of inevitable that, we're going to get some subsequent episodes that wouldn't be as impressive. They just wouldn't be any good. And for example, Dominion, it was supposed to be one of these episodes that promises, we're going to have more about Vadic, have more about the changelings and their plans. But to me, it just failed to deliver that. However, this episode is not entirely bad, and it's certainly not the worst episode of Picard. However, the subplots involving Geordi, Data, and Lore are definitely emotionally engaging, absolutely, although they don't all fit together perfectly. Nonetheless, they definitely set the stage, like I mentioned, for an exciting follow-up episode of almost a die-hard moment. And the episode, kicks off with a powerful start. I think we were all surprised to see Tuvok, from Voyager, played by the immaculate Tim Russ. And I wasn't expecting Tuvok of all people, but it's a totally amazing, we got to see him, and I'm glad we got to see him. Plus, the crescendo of the Voyager theme just made my heart smile. And I think they're doing an awesome job of the show by paying homage to these beloved Star Trek series. And again, I think this guy, Terry Melatis, he should be our Dave Filoni of Star Wars. He should be our guy. Give him everything. Give him the next shows. Give him the next movies. I think he's doing an awesome job and meeting plot with nostalgia, which is incredibly difficult to do. I will say this, mentioning the Tuvok scene with 7 of 9, and she's kind of discerning, if she's talking to Tuvok or she's talking to a changeling. I think Jerry Ryan's portrayal of her anger and just her observation skills and kind of going back and forth. What a range by Jerry. I was super impressed with her acting. I think that she deserves some type of spinoff or awards for this, her portrayal of 7. Been nothing but the best from her. So I've really enjoyed her seeing, come into her own as an actress. So that was awesome. But I will say this episode definitely tries to maintain this level of intensity, throughout the episode. And it kind of does this by revealing, several significant discoveries, about Starfleet's past and the Dominion War throughout the hour. And despite its desire to kind of make it interesting, it kind of falls short, and it leaves a lot of questions more than answers. And for anybody that didn't know, this is DS9's plot. We knew this. It was almost a rehash to me about, the atrocities and torturing the changelings to get the virus. I was like, yeah, we've done this. We know this. And if you haven't seen DS9, then I understand why they did it, to kind of catch everybody up and be like, are we the baddies? Are we the bad guys? And then ultimately that Starfleet voted not to give the antidote to the founders, and that Odo had to James Bond the antidote and give it to the Great Link. So that definitely didn't help, our cause or Starfleet's cause. And an ideal version of Starfleet that a lot of people have, especially if maybe you've only watched TNG, you would never keep a cure to a virus that you created, use another species' misery to your own advantage. I guess like Cisco in A Pale Moonlight, someone at Section 31 can live with it. And this is actually an interesting development that I will say the episode did a good job on, is that so we see that Section 31's classified experiments on those POWs, I think, what was it, Luna? It was known as Project Proteus? Okay, it kind of contributed to their ability to mimic genetic material in an undetectable way. So, and kind of powered Vadic's plan for revenge. So I like that idea that, these 9 changelings can go and infect other changelings, and, and who knows if they infiltrate the entire Great Link. We're introduced that it's kind of a rogue terrorist sect, but who knows? But it's this kind of idea that, your chickens have come home to roost. Like, your meddling and your war crimes have come home and are going to cost you something now. I think that's interesting. And plus, like I mentioned before with the Section 31 show, this would be really interesting to kind of see maybe another side of this whole thing, and not just get one perspective. What's going on in Section 31? How was this decision made? Who authorized it? Was there pushback? Because I don't think everybody in Section 31 is, a villainous SS Nazi, but at the same time, they're not the most favorable group in sci-fi right now. Another gripe I had with the episode is this, undoubtedly foolish and doomed strategy of letting Vadic and her crew board the ship and hoping to capture them by surprise. Season 3, the plans and kind of the Hail Marys we've seen in Picard haven't gone their way a lot and have been frequently disastrous. I think the writers plainly did this, so it provides an opportunity for Vadic, Picard, and Crusher to kind of confront each other face to face in a proper setting, kind of resulted in a kind of a good cop, bad cop interrogation. To me, it just didn't. Did it feel forced? Maybe. But it just, you can see now, hindsight 2020, it's like, okay, they were just doing this to get that sweet conversation and that sweet confrontation. However, Amanda Plummer's performance as Vadic is still super captivating, and as a villain, I think she's losing her edge, just to be honest. I think her performance is good, but to me, she's kind of become almost like one-dimensional character. And she's just obsessed with revenge, and she's not this exciting space pirate that she once was, and she's a bounty hunter, and now she's just hell-bent on revenge, completely one-dimensional, and that's it. I really feel, kind of staying with Vadic, the revelation about Jack's true identity, it doesn't make me invested in his character in his own right. I think the sudden changes in his character from being this swag kind of Han Solo figure to suddenly feeling like, something's wrong with me and I don't know what to do and I'm shy now and I can't barely touch a girl's hand. And to me, it's just not convincing. Another thing is that kind of gripes with me is that Jack's decision to kind of risk the safety of others for months while on the run with his mom, then all of a sudden he's okay with that. And then all of a sudden to decide now that his life is not worth it, to me, just seems kind of illogical. Yeah, it just doesn't seem right to me. I will say this, that Ed Spieler's, the guy playing and portraying Jack, is doing his best to make sense kind of this confusing and nonsensical dialogue he's given. But to me at this point, the secret of Jack's true identity feels kind of like it's being dragged out, to the point it's not even, to me, serving the story anymore. I don't really even care. There's 3 episodes left, and this was supposed to be the episode we might get something more, but as we saw at the end of Dominion, Vadic hints, over the intercom, we're going to discover who Jack really is in the next episode. But to me, it's just too little, too late, and I just don't care. I'm more concerned about the changelings. I'm more concerned about, data and lore and all that, and what's happening with Frontier Day, what's up with Riker. I don't really care who Jack is. If he's half changeling or half Poth Wraith, maybe. We'll get into that. That's a theory at the end of the episode. Again, it's just this, they set the table and they couldn't answer questions. And they did that with Jack, but they also did that with, this changeling attack. We've been hearing about this attack on Frontier Day. Again, no concrete details were given to us, what the intentions are, why they need the body or the dead body of Picard and Jack both. We just don't really get any more concrete details, but we do get one little crack through the facade. Maybe, they stole John Luke's body because they wanted to kind of imitate John Luke and the security scans or something like that for the Frontier Day celebration and kind of evade detection. Okay, that doesn't make any sense. If they're majority of those are in charge of Starfleet, why would they just need his body for that? That's a poop theory. We see Data discovers, hey, there's actually might be more to it than just that John Luke's parietal lobe is exhibiting some unusual activity. It's probably not the Uromatic syndrome, and it could be something to do with like Locutus of Borg idea we talked about last week. And, they may bring in the Borg again for the next couple episodes to bring them around. They've always kind of been in Picard each season. And so now it would be nice if they kind of maybe cap that off and bring in the Borg somehow, that the changelings want to have this perfect technology to communicate across galaxies. And they would do this by having the mind of Locutus, who was still able to control his individuality, all while being, linked to the Borg. No concrete details really given. We got maybe, some affirmation about the Borg Locutus idea from Data. It's just, we'll wait and see. And they set the table, like I've mentioned, but it's just a really wait and see. And it was just kind of almost a filler episode. Reminded me a lot of episode 2. We knew Jack was Picard's son. Why did they have to give us an entire week episode of that? Either way, moving on to talk about the lore / Data and Geordi interaction. So we see the resurrection of Data, which quasi has brought back lore, and lore interventions this week led to kind of another storytelling Trek trope that we've seen. And I like it a little bit, but I don't feel like it really fits the season. The heroes are captured and they're all taken prisoner, kind of cliche. I feel like we've seen this through so many seasons of Star Trek. We see it in Deep Space Nine. We see it in Voyager. Somebody's taking the ship and they have to work their way through it. I think we've even seen it in TNG, right, Luna? So it's just, again, it's another trope, which is fine. And I like those diehard settings, but not right now. Not the third to last episode of which has been a great season 3. It's a kind of a bad way just to add tension to the story, if that makes any sense. I know I'm going really hard in this episode, but it was not the worst, again, of Picard, and I did enjoy some moments of it. And one of those moments, and I feel like the saving grace on the side of the episode was definitely Geordi and the wonderful kind of emotional performance that LeVar Burton put into Geordi, that we got out of Geordi as he was, trying to reach out to his long dead friend. I mean, to me, I don't really care who disagrees with me. I think Burton deserves an award for his scenes this week alone. I mean, they were absolutely riveting to watch. And I would love to know what you guys think about LeVar Burton's performance. And in fact, in just 2 episodes, in my opinion, my humble opinion, Geordi has quickly become one of the best characters in Picard, one of the best characters this season. And I think he's just hitting all those right notes consistently. However, I will say on the other end, even though we have this amazing performance by Burton, we've kind of already seen his great interaction with Data and lore before. We basically had this conversation and this scene in season 1, and it came between Data and Picard, and Geordi's reunion with Data and this attempt to reach out to him and break through lore's control feels like, again, those rehashing of those conversations between Picard and Data. And in spite of what has to be one of the best acting performances in all of modern Trek, in my opinion, these scenes sadly just don't add much to the story. So Geordi could have expressed his sorrow at Data's death to Picard or to Alton Soong if the character hadn't been, unceremoniously killed off. But bringing back Data just feels kind of, we got the band back together, after watching this week, he's adding to the story, but he's not as involved. And it just seems, it's not sitting right with me. We'll see how it plays out in the next 3 episodes. Hopefully it gets a little bit better. I just think it's just not sitting right with me. Hopefully they just didn't bring him back, to say, we got everybody. So again, as I continue to rip on this episode, I really thought it wasn't too bad. I would probably give it 6.8 out of 10. It's not terrible, but it's not great either. What leads me to that is there were some confusing points to me, for example, so we see at the beginning of the episode, Jack's dreams. I thought this was explained already. I thought this was the iridomic syndrome. I thought that's why he had all these dreams and heard all these voices, but I guess not. So I guess it's not explained away. Another big issue I had is that Picard and Beverly seemed like they were just going to kill Vadic. And that doesn't sit right well with me either. And it shouldn't for you if you're a lifelong Trek fan, because so they have this former tortured, experimented on prisoner of war under their control. And they decide they're going to kill her. It's the safest option, which I agree is the safest option for them. And for them to, stop the pursuit, whatever, for now, because eventually the Changelings people would just send somebody else to go get Jack. But it just doesn't seem very Federation ideals to me. They value all life, to seek out new life. We see multiple times they respect it throughout the series. Suddenly they turn into Sisko and sit down on the couch, and I'm like, hey, I can live with it. No problem. I really thought Picard was going to say, hey, she's been tortured. We're going to show her we're not like that. We're better than that. This Section 31 monsters, that's not the true Federation. We're going to show them compassion and mercy, and we're going to talk to them, and we're not going to threaten them or anything. And nope, they're just like, none of that. We're just going to shoot her. she's too dangerous to be kept alive. And I thought that was a little redundant, to be honest. And another big issue I've had is, how exactly did Lore break out and seize control of the ship? And if you go back and rewatch, it seems to me Lore did it because plot. And they don't really explain it. It just kind of shows up on the screens. Oh, Lore's got control of the ship. What can we do? Oh, we got to get Data to be in control and fight him. That's just not a very satisfying answer or kind of explanation to me. Especially, given the high stakes that we're at right now with Vadic on the ship. And so it seems to me that Vadic and maybe this crazy plan could have worked. They had all the force fields in place and it seemed very calculated. And without Lore's help, I think Vadic would have stayed captured. The fact that they just threw Lore's ability to take over a ship just doesn't seem right. It just seems like they just did it for plot's sake, to move the plot along. It is what it is. Again, 6.8. There were good points. I mean, how could you not love the Geordi speech? And, there was some other good ones between Vadic and Amanda Plummer's, her performance and talking about being tortured and her terrible ordeals. That was amazing acting. Again, like I said, the villains have become one-dimensional. A lot of these emotional scenes we've seen haven't really served a good purpose. They've just been good scenes. And again, we're sitting at the table. However, kind of moving on to the section where we talk about Easter eggs, I didn't really see any Easter eggs. Kind of last week, we had a smorgasbord of Easter eggs. Every single scene had multiple Easter eggs, but it felt like that. So not really going to get any Easter eggs this week. However, I did mention it earlier in the episode, this interesting fan theory that I've been hearing about. We'll do a little background. So when Vadic took control of the Titan's Bridge, she announced, it's time for everybody and for Jack Crusher to learn who you truly are. And also, Vadic dropped another clue when she was talking to Beverly. And she said, Jack was never for you. And to me, this indicates, the changelings or, someone else, perhaps the mystery face, somehow, manipulated Jack or changed Jack. Maybe when he was a boy or a baby, or maybe even during conception, who knows? Another possibility is, given, Jack's eyes that glow red whenever his powers activate, is that he is a member of the Pa-Wraith, the Bajoran's evil god. We're talking about Gul Dukat again. So this would make Jack, the opposite of Benjamin Sisko, who was a kind of a half-prophet. As the emissary for the Bajoran people, Jack would kind of be another counter to that for the Pa-Wraith. Who knows? But I definitely think it would be cool to bring that kind of deep cut DS9 Bajoran lore. And of course, I mean, if that turns out to be true, he has some type of Pa-Wraith in him. Because again, the changelings the wormhole was right at Bajor. Gul Dukat was working with the Dominion. So it's not crazy. You can make that jump and we wouldn't be shocked. However, I would love to see and I don't think it's ever going to happen, an Avery Brooks, Captain Sisko cameo. I think that'd be super awesome to see again. Changeling gets shot and dissipates, and Sisko walks through it, and he's just back, back from the Celestial Temple. I would love that, but I don't think it's going to happen. Avery Brooks is loving his life right now, and I don't think wants to get back into Star Trek. So who knows? We'll see. And again, that's kind of the only way I could really care about who Jack is. And that's a pretty broad stretch to make him like somehow half Poth Wraith. That's a far stretch to do. And that just kind of shows, me including probably a lot of the fans out there, we're just done with it. And we're done with this whole storyline. But anyway, again, thank you so much for listening. That has been our review on episode Dominion, season 3 of Picard. So Luna, let's roll that beautiful bean footage. Again, thank you guys so much for listening, and please let me know what you think. We definitely have a lot of polls on our social media. A lot of you have been messaging, be like, yeah, this sucked, or oh, it was awesome, or I disagree with you. Please continue to reach out on our social medias. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. We're on everything, and I love hearing from you guys. And also, please remember, if you're looking for great reviews on other things besides Star Trek, please check out www.jasontalksmovies.wordpress.com. That link is in the episode description below, so please check that out. And always remember to rate, review, and subscribe as well. We love growing our little OPP family here, and it's been a pleasure. And also, we have a huge milestone coming this month. I don't want to spoil it. Years in the making, and it's all thanks to you wonderful people out there. Always remember, second star to the right, straight on till morning.